Hi guys, it's Sin from Sin's Tumblers, and I'm here with the Epoxy Resin store, and today we're going to make a caramel apple mug. Perfect for teacher appreciation. So what we're going to need is Tumbler's lightning cure. We're going to need Tumbler's coating epoxy. We're going to need thickening powder, fine glitter. This is the Rolling Stones. We're going to need matte mahogany mica powder. Those can be found at the Epoxy Resin store. We're also going to need some acrylic paint. We're going to need some mixing cups, mixing sticks. Here I have some faux peanuts. We're going to need a torch, your round mug, your spinner, and some gloves. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to need a mixing cup, and we're going to mix 15 milliliters of epoxy, so 7.5 part A and 7.5 part B of the Tumbler's Lightning Cure epoxy. Okay, now it's very important that we mix equal parts of our epoxy. If we're off, then what can happen is that our epoxy will stay tacky, it won't cure, and we'll have to start all over. So it's really important that we're mixing equal parts. When you're mixing this epoxy, you want to make sure that you're mixing slowly and that you're scraping the sides and the bottom of the cup. You also want to make sure that you only mix for about 60 to 90 seconds. Any more mixing after that and you're pretty much just creating bubbles in your epoxy. Now, if you see these big bubbles right here, don't be alarmed. Those are easy to pop. We're gonna pop them with the torch. So don't be alarmed if you start seeing bubbles in the epoxy. Alrighty. That looks good. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our spinner, and I like for my cup to spin clockwise because I'm right-handed, so I spread with my right, I spread it out with my right, and then I pour with my left. Now for our glitter to adhere, we're going to smooth epoxy all around the cup, and we want a thin layer. If you do a thick layer of epoxy, then your glitter's gonna come out looking globby. So you want a thin layer. You want enough epoxy on here so that your glitter sticks, but so that it's not drowning in the epoxy, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna get a nice layer of epoxy around my entire cup. Don't forget the handle. And then for the bottom, I just swirl it around in a circle. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove any excess epoxy from this tumbler. Because again, I don't want a thick layer of epoxy, because if I have a thick layer, then my glitter is going to look globby, and I don't want that. Okay, I'm making sure that I have epoxy all around the cup. There was a spot that I missed. Right now when it turns, I'll get it right here. This right here, that is the most common place for me to miss epoxy. So make sure that when you're applying the epoxy to your cup, that you're getting every single spot of the cup covered in epoxy. All right, now I'm going to take my torch and I'm just going to do once around. Now when you're torching, you want to go in a back and forth motion. And you really only need to go once around. Okay. So now that we have that, we're going to take our glitter, and I'm actually just going to remove the entire lid. Okay, and go ahead and pour your glitter onto your cup. Okay, I do have my sheet of paper down there just to catch any glitter so that we can put it back into our glitter cup. It's much easier to do it like this than to try to sprinkle a little bit here and a little bit there. This is just easier for me, but you know, if it's easier for you to do it another way, then go for it. All right, now for the bottom, I'm literally just going to toss the glitter on there. All right, guys, so that looks good. I'm just gonna put some right here on the handle. And I think, yep, my cup looks completely covered with glitter. So now I'm gonna get my sheet and I'm going to put that glitter back into my cup. Alright, so that glitter is back into the cup. Now what I'm gonna do is close that lid and I'll set it aside. Now, to pat this down, actually, I'm gonna pat the glitter down and I'm gonna use my glove. I'm not gonna use the paper. This is kind of, you know, with that round shape, it's a little bit harder for me to flatten out the glitter with the sheet of paper. So I'm just gonna use my gloved hand and I'm just lightly pressing the glitter down. Now, why are we flattening this glitter? When you flatten your glitter, typically for fine glitter, I mean, you honestly don't have to. I do just out of habit, and flattening the glitter causes it to lay flat. That way when we epoxy over it, we don't have glitters poking out here and there, and then we use less layers of epoxy over the entire cup. So it's just, you know, just a rule of thumb. Flatten out your glitter. Okay, perfect. Now, it looks like I missed a little tiny spot on the handle, so I'm gonna grab my glitter and I'm gonna grab my sheet of paper. It's on the other side. Right there. Okay, looks like I got it. Okay, that's perfect. I'm gonna press that down. Okay guys, so it's been about maybe like 5 minutes since I applied my first coat of epoxy. So I'm gonna, to adhere the glitter, so now I'm gonna apply a layer over the entire tumbler. And for that one, we're going to use 15 milliliters of epoxy. So we're going to take our mixing cup, our measuring cup, and we're going to apply 15 milliliters of epoxy. So 7.5 part B and 7.5 part A. Right, we got 7.5 part B. And then we're going in with 7.5 of part A for a total of 15 milliliters. Perfect. We're gonna go ahead and mix this. We're gonna mix for about 60 seconds. Make sure you're scraping the sides of the cup and the bottom of the cup as well. Alright guys, our epoxy is ready to coat our cup, so let's go ahead. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour, like, don't be scared, just pour your epoxy on your cup. And then I'm just going to smooth it. I'm going to smooth it around. You want to coat all around the glitter. Okay, I'm going to go up. And for the handle, I'm just going to rub my fingers around the handle. Any excess is going towards the bottom of the cup, and it's dripping at the bottom, but it's okay. I'm going to remove that in just a bit. This is what the bottom of my cup looks like. It's all drippy, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth that out in just a bit. Make sure you get inside here. Again, that is the part where I always miss applying epoxy for some reason. I don't know if it's probably because of the shape of the cup. The handle gets in my way, so just make sure that you're taking extra time and checking on your cup. Right here, like I said, is the part that I miss the most. All right. Looks like oh, I'm missing a spot right here. Okay, I'm gonna put the excess back into the cup. When we're using lightning cure, we want to make sure that we have a thin layer of epoxy. If your layer of epoxy is on thick, you're probably going to get bubbles in your, in the epoxy that's coating your cup. So please make sure that you're working with thin layers. This epoxy dries so quick that if you apply a thick layer, any bubbles that were left in the epoxy will not have time to reach the surface and pop. So please be sure that you're applying a thin layer of epoxy. Okay guys, that looks good. I'm just removing any excess epoxy from my cup, and now we're ready to torch it. Again, we just want to go once around the cup, and then when I'm torching, I'm not using the point, I'm using the underbelly of the flame. And for me, that's what helps me. If you use the point and you're pointing it straight to your cup, you're probably going to burn it. So you're probably going to burn the epoxy, you may burn the glitter, so just be careful when you're torching. Back and forth sweeping motions, and once around the cup should be fine. Okay, so now we're going to wait about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll apply another layer of epoxy over this. It's been about 10 minutes, so we're going to go in with another layer of 15, well, we're going to mix 15 milliliters, and we're going to go in with our second layer over the glitter. Third time mixing, the second time applying over the glitter. So 15 milliliters, 7.5 part B, and then 7.5 part A. Now again, this layer of epoxy, you want to make sure that you apply it on thin, because the lightning cure cures fast. If you apply it on too thick, if there's any bubbles in the epoxy, they're not going to be able to reach the surface and pop if you apply a thick layer. Okay, and then for the handle, just make sure you go around, and underneath the handle, make sure you are are getting that with epoxy as well. Okay, any excess is going back into my mixing cup. Looks like I'm missing some towards the rim. Right over here. When I'm applying epoxy, I like to go from the bottom and up. That way I'm passing the rim. If I go from the top to bottom, I run the risk of getting epoxy inside my tumbler. Now, again, if the epoxy gets inside the tumbler, it's really not a big deal. All you gotta do is clean it off. But to avoid that, we're just gonna do it this way. I do it this way. And then the bottom of the tumbler. Okay, now go ahead and check your cup. See if there's any parts on the cup that you applied the epoxy on too thick, or maybe some spots that are missing. So I'm looking around the cup, everything looks good. I think I'm ready to torch now. All right, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and take my torch, and again, a back and forth sweeping motion, and I'm just gonna go once around the cup. So let's go ahead and do it from when the handle gets back up. Okay, here we go. And then the bottom of the cup as well. All right, so we're gonna let that dry for about 35 to 40 minutes before we touch our cup. Okay, so for this part, we're going to use Tumbler's coating epoxy. We're going to use the thickener, mica powder, acrylic paint, our bag of faux peanuts. We're gonna need our mixing cup and a mixing stick. We're going to use 20 milliliters of epoxy, so 10 milliliters of each part of part A and then 10 of part B. And for this one, we're using the Tumbler's coating epoxy. The reason why I'm using Tumbler's coating epoxy is because I'm going to be adding acrylic paint, and if I add acrylic paint to the Tumbler's lightning cure, it just cures way too fast for me, and I won't be able to do the drip. So the Tumbler's coating epoxy is perfect for me when I'm adding acrylic paint. Okay, I think it needs a little bit more. That made a funny noise, didn't it? Okay. I think that's good. Perfect. So we have 10 milliliters. And go ahead and add this one for a total of 20 milliliters. Okay, perfect. So now that we have our 20 milliliters of epoxy in our mixing cup, we're gonna go ahead and mix it. Now, this epoxy will need to mix for about 3 minutes. This epoxy also has a thicker consistency, and that's okay. We're just gonna mix it for let's do like 3 to 5 minutes. Make sure you're scraping the sides and the bottom of the mixing cup as well. Look at how thick that is. That's totally normal. So make sure you're scraping the sides and the bottom. Alright, our epoxy's ready. Now to give it that caramel color, we're going to add some acrylic paint. And then we're just going to add just a little bit of the mica powder to darken it up. Okay, so you don't want to add too much at a time. If you add too much paint, you could ruin your epoxy. It'll get very stringy and unworkable. Okay, that's a nice color. I think I want to darken it up just a little bit though. So I'm going to take our mica powder. We're using matte mahogany. I'm just going to add a little bit. Like, this is a very dark color. You don't want to add too much. You just want to add just a little bit. I think maybe this even might be too much. So literally like a little bit. Let's go ahead and mix that in and see what happens. Okay, so didn't really do too much. Let's go ahead and add a little bit more. We'll add this much. It's just that if you add too much, you can't take away how much mica powder you add. So just add a little bit at a time. If you feel that your mica powder is getting like clumpy, all you gotta do is smash it against the sides. Okay, I think we can add more. I want it to be darker. Let's add this much, okay? We want it to be a caramel color, but I want it to be like, you know, like the caramel apples that you buy at the store or like that you get at the fair. That's the kind of caramel color that I'm trying to get. We're gonna use the thickening powder, so we're just gonna pour a little bit at a time. All right, let's go ahead and mix that in there. All right, we're gonna add some more. All right, so like this, that's gonna go inside there. And then we're gonna mix that slowly. When we're using the Tumbler's coating epoxy, to get this thick enough to the consistency that I want it, we'll need to wait about 45 minutes. But using the thickening powder, it cuts the time like by so much. So look at how much thicker this is. I do still want it to be more thick, so we're gonna add more thickening powder. So we're adding more. I really don't want my epoxy moving too much. So that's why I'm adding so much. And then just go ahead and press that down into the epoxy. This is ready. It's thick, and we can apply it to our tumbler. So let's go ahead and just add it. We want to add it around the cup, So we're gonna go to the rim, well, the bottom rim, because we want the caramel to be at the bottom of the cup. Alright, so for here, I'm pretty much just trying to thin out the top, because I don't want it too thick down here, or too thick up here. So I'm just smoothing everything down, just like that. Okay, so once you're happy with your drips, then, okay, let's see. We're going to put our fake peanuts on there. Because what is a caramel apple without the peanuts? Okay, and look at how cute this is looking. Okay guys, let's go ahead and add our peanuts. I'm gonna go ahead and add our little peanuts to a little cup just because it's easier for me. And I'm gonna tilt my cup and we're just gonna sprinkle them on there. Wherever they fall, that's where they fall. Oh, this is so cute. Okay guys, so it's been 24 hours and this is completely cured. So now we're gonna go ahead and epoxy the entire cup. We're gonna mix 15 milliliters of epoxy, of lightning pure epoxy. So 7.5 part B and 7.5 part A. Now when we're mixing, again, we want to mix slowly, and we're going to scrape the sides and scrape the bottom, and we only need to mix for about 60 seconds. Alright, that looks good. So let's go ahead and turn our spinner on and let's apply our epoxy to our cup. Now when you're applying, make sure you pay attention to the handle part, because that's the part where I tend to forget again, right here and on the handle. So not that I forget, it's just that that's where I miss the that's where normally when I'm epoxying, I'll have epoxy missing, is underneath the handle and on part of the handle. So yes, I am coating the entire drip. Because you wanna make sure that the nuts are fully coated. We don't want any of them popping off. Okay, and then for this part, I'm just bringing it down. I'm gonna remove any excess from the drip, so like right here, that's where I wanna focus on removing any excess epoxy. Because I still want the drips to be 3D. I don't want them to be fully encased in the, I want them to be coated in the epoxy. I don't want it to be completely encased, if that makes sense. Okay, and kind of take your time on the faux nut part, because it's super bumpy and you don't want to pop any of them off. And for the bottom of the cup, I'm just going to put some epoxy on my glove, and in a circular motion, I'm going to put it on my cup, on the bottom of the cup. Alright, so I'm going to go around now and remove, if I see any spots on the drip that are globby, I'm going to go ahead and remove the excess. It looks pretty good actually. I didn't see any places where it was super globby or anything. Okay guys, so this cup has now been here sitting for about 45 minutes. At the 20-minute mark, I went ahead and I turned off my spinner, and then I just left it alone. And like I said, it's been 45 minutes, so let's take it off of the spinner. And let's go ahead and clean the rim. Now to clean the rim, you're going to need a craft knife. So one of these, and all we're going to do is we're just going to run it around the rim. And that's going to remove any epoxy that may have gotten on the rim. Like on this part of the cup. And now you have your cutest caramel apple for your teacher. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Epoxy Resin Store's YouTube channel and follow them on all of their social media platforms. And I'll see you soon. Bye!